We are assembled to protest against a form of government existing without the consent of the governed, to declare our right to be free as man is free, to be represented in the government which we are taxed to support, to have such disgraceful laws as give man the power to chastise and imprison his wife, to take the wages which she earns, the property which she inherits, and in case of separation, the children of her love, said Elizabeth Cady Stanton at the Women's Rights Convention in 1848.
See, women lacked the ability to vote in America before the 1920s, and without this right, women had little to no say in political affairs. Breaking barriers, women like Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, suffragettes at the time, gave speeches and wrote petitions and were finally allowed to vote when the 19th Amendment was passed. This would encourage fighting for gender and racial equality in feminists today, like women who are running for president and refuse to be objectified.
On July 19, 1848, the Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls, New York, marked the start of women's suffrage.
The convention spoke about the 11 resolutions of women's rights, all passed except for the 9th one, the right to vote.
Sojourner Truth, a black suffragette fighting for gender and racial equality, gave a speech called Ain't I a Woman, and made important points such as, women need to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches, and have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helps me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me any best place, and ain't I a woman? And if the first woman God ever made was strong enough to turn the world upside down all alone, these women together ought to be able to turn it back and get it right side up again. And now they is asking to do it, the men better let them.
The speech, Ain't I a Woman, was one of the more impactful speeches given at this time because it touched on two types of inequality, gender and racial, given by someone who is both a woman and black and who would not stand for following any kind of stereotypes.
The NWLL, National Women's Loyal League, was founded on May 14, 1863. Their goal was to get equal rights mainly for people of African descent, and were pushing for the 13th Amendment to be passed. They hoped that if men had equal rights with each other, it would lead to women having equal rights with men.
The American Equal Rights Association was founded in 1866. The 11th National Women's Rights Convention were the people that created and founded that association. The purpose of the association was to secure equal rights to all American citizens, especially the right of suffrage, irrespective of race, color, or sex.
Many suffragettes, along with Susan B. Anthony, decided to stay single in 1868. They wanted to show that they could be independent and not rely on men.
Women of the American Women's Suffrage Association, or AWSA, sent a letter to Congress requesting your honorable bodies to enact a law authorizing women who are citizens of the United States to vote and hold office upon the same terms and conditions as men.
In the 1872 election on November 5th, Susan B. Anthony got arrested for voting illegally. While she was being arrested, she asked if she was being arrested the same way a man would be, and when the officer said no, she demanded that she should be arrested properly. The trial for Susan's illegal voting came on June 17, 1873.
At the end of Susan's trial, the judge asked her if she had anything to say. She said she did and began saying things such as, "Your denial of my citizens' right to vote is the denial of my right of consent as one of the governed." She said so much that the judge asked her to sit down and stop, but she would not. The fine she had to pay was never paid, and she said it will never be, so it never was.
The Declaration of Rights speech, given on July 4, 1876, is known as one of the biggest speeches for women. The speech gave a very specific and easy-to-understand Declaration of Rights, and how the government wasn't allowing it to apply to women when it should have.
In 1890, the National Women's Suffrage Association and the American Women's Suffrage Association joined together to create the National American Women's Suffrage Association.
Many women and suffragettes composed a petition of 600,000 signatures for an act to bring rights to women. They submitted the signatures to the New York State Constitutional Convention, but it failed to pass through.
Elizabeth Cady Stanton, as one of her last big suffragette acts, wrote a book called The Woman's Bible, where she went over scriptures in the Bible and explained them in a different way than religious leaders saw it. One example is her view on the Godhead, saying, but instead of 3 male personages, a heavenly Father, Mother, and Son would seem more rational. Elizabeth wrote, one correspondent conjures us to suspend the work, as it is ridiculous for women to attempt the revision of the scriptures. Why is it more ridiculous for women to protest against her present status in the Old and New Testament?
Women marched down Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C. on March 3, 1913. The women walked in front of the Capitol in hopes of having Congress notice them.
During the parade, women were harassed, spit at, pushed around, and were constantly having people say horrible things to them. The police didn't try to stop it, and even sometimes joined in with the crowd. At the end of the day, many women were injured and were sent to hospitals because of the parade to show gender inequality.
In May 1919, the House of Representatives passed the 19th Amendment, and 2 weeks after, the Senate followed. In the August of 1920, the USA obtained the agreement to the amendments of 3/4 of the states, changing the way women were seen in politics forever.
All throughout history, women have been seen as objects or things that don't feel and think as well as men do. Women today should be forever grateful for the freedom of speech and choice given by the sacrifices and heartache that suffragettes had to endure. Though there is still inequality in the world today, it is hard to imagine what it would have been like without women who were allowed to speak their minds and got the chance to be heard.